We have 19 countries together, all Western democratic, saying that Milošević Yugoslavia should be bombed, and we have 25 countries together in September 2012 saying that Kosovo is fine, it should be fully independent, and supervision shall be terminated. It is the transatlantic bridge and the democracies in the world today who would make a leap forward in combating this right-wing extremism and autocratic tide which is taking place in democratic West, coming out victorious sooner rather than later. Undoubtedly, Kosovo is a success story of NATO intervention on one hand and of democratic state building and socioeconomic development on the other hand. Independent evaluators show that Kosovo is a champion of democracy in the region, with the fastest democratic rise in the last 3 years in rule of law, political rights and civil liberties, liberal and electoral democracy, transparency and anti-corruption. It also has the highest economic growth on average compared with the region. So task number one is to get the 5 EU non-recognizers to recognize Kosovo. And this is and must be a shared task among the transatlantic community because it is a shared responsibility. Of course, normalization of relations with Serbia matters. It matters because Serbia is our neighbor with whom we share over half of our border, and we cannot change geography and history. It also matters because Serbia has initiated all wars in former Yugoslavia, where it neither took responsibility nor apologized for all the human suffering, crime, and destruction they caused. On the contrary. Today, it keeps 48 military forward operating bases, like a horseshoe around Kosovo. And this horseshoe in 1999 was inside Kosovo, now is around it. In the first 2 years of our government, Serbia brought its military 4 times to the border, flying Russian MiG-29 planes, fighter jets, Russian Mi-35 choppers, and it brought Russian T-72 MS tanks. Serbia, unfortunately, has not changed, nor has it democratized. Instead of showing remorse for the crimes it committed in the past, it keeps threatening new wars. This is why normalization matters. Normalization of relations between Kosovo and Serbia needs normalization of Serbia in a democratic and European sense of the word. And all this not only because Kosovo's membership in international organizations must not be objected to, but because Kosovo and Serbia must be able to live side by side as normal neighbors with good neighborly European relations that put mutual recognition at the center of a future normalization agreement between Kosovo and Serbia. Because mutual recognition is mutual acceptance of reality, which must also include dealing with the past to enable reconciliation. Instead of a final agreement centered on mutual recognition, it pushed rather for an agreement on the path towards normalization centered on mutual de facto recognition. Of course, our government is for dialogue, and in any circumstance, we only engage in agreements that further advance Kosovo's interest and strengthen our statehood, and that do not lessen or undermine it. Yet, a question is legitimate. Why ever settle for less? Why appease Vučić? Meanwhile, ever since he came to power, Serbia has only backslid into autocracy. Despite all this, Kosovo has remained committed, constructive, and creative in the dialogue. We now have an agreement which must be protected by those who brought it. It cannot be the case where a legally binding agreement is violated without consequences. Yet Serbia has violated on numerous occasions without any consequence.